In today's episode, we look at a horrific incident where a champion kickboxer was attacked by 14 violent enforcers intent on destroying the bouncers and anyone else who got in their way. Gary Sandland is a fearsome former pro fighter who was crowned heavyweight full contact kickboxer of the world, successfully defending his title 14 times in 7 years. The powerfully built heavy hitter was also one of the students and assistant coaches for the immense fighting machine, Gary Spires, and one of many champion fighters who worked the doors at one point. Spires epitomised everything an all-round street fighter would want: big, powerful, skilled in close combat, wrestling and martial arts at the highest level, mixed with the dark arts of street fighting. Sandland, on the other hand, was an elite professional fighter of the highest calibre inside the ring. He was one of the hardest punchers and strikers of his era in kickboxing, and all those skills were needed one night at the popular New Brighton club, the Chelsea Reach. During this period in the late 90s, violence and gang wars were erupting in the city, mainly due to the control of clubs and pubs, opening up access to thousands of hungry partygoers, desperate for pills and coke to enhance their night's adventures. Gone was the relative ease of the 60s and 70s, where the worst trouble was over drunken disputes and local hardman characters. In the mid to late 80s, 90s and early 2000s, before the SIA came in, power struggles were between security firms and gangs vying for control of pubs and clubs or attempting to keep hold of them. Many of the big door firms were run by crime families, and the consequences for doormen on the front line could be fatal if they crossed the wrong people. On this particular evening, the two bouncers at the front, controlling who could enter the busy club, were approached by a large group of heavy-looking men wanting to know if certain individuals were inside. The two doormen told them the individuals were not in the club, when out of nowhere one of the doormen was knocked unconscious with a big punch from a duster-clad hand. Swiftly the other bouncer was set upon and rendered unconscious. As the men stormed into the foyer, Gary Sandland and his door partner Steve were on their way to check on the lads at the front of the club. The shock of seeing around 14 meatheads storming through the doors with knives, lumps of wood, chains and knuckle dusters must have been immense, but they had no time to assess the situation. They had to immediately fight for their lives. The advantage of being on a few steps higher than the vicious thugs attempting to massacre them was vital, and they both began lashing out with powerful punches and kicks. One punch from Sandland was so powerful that the attacker flew through a plate glass window. As they fought a battle reminiscent of Rorke's Drift, the other doormen had been dragged in and were getting kicked around the head. The owner's son, who had appeared to help, had been stabbed multiple times and was on death's door. This gang meant business, and they were intent on badly harming, if not killing, all who stood in their path. Gary and his fellow doormen knew this, and he used all his skills to punch and kick the attackers repeatedly back down the stairs, knowing it was the only thing keeping them from being torn to pieces by the pack of savage wolves. Eventually, Sandland and Steve drove the attackers back out the door and they fled on foot. All the other doormen were in serious condition. The club's owner's son had multiple puncture wounds and was rushed to hospital. The two bouncers knocked unconscious were also disfigured with serious lacerations from broken glass. He would be forgiven for thinking Sandland and his fellow doormen deserved a medal for keeping the attackers at bay and a good dose of R&R to get over the night's brutal turn of events. But no sooner had the attackers left, Sandland was summoned to a meeting by serious players in Liverpool's underworld. The message was quite clear. If the matter was not dropped, with no repercussions from the police, they would send someone to finish the job on the club's owner's son lying in hospital with severe wounds. There was little room for sentiment and morality within the underworld. Only the smartest, strongest and wickedest survive. The fact that someone is a world champion fighter means little to serious villains. Sandland, interviewed by Bernard O'Mahony about the incident, said that he readily agreed to the demands of the gang and no witness statements were given to the police. The matter was then dropped. As shocking and horrific as the attack was, it was a sensible move by Sandland. Why risk your life and those of your colleagues over a dispute that really had nothing to do with him? So that was the Gary Sandland massive fight or attack by, it was another door firm, I believe, who had attacked them. I don't know what the beef was over. Gary Sandlin doesn't go into detail on that on the interview that I've listened to of him, but there was a meeting and it was squared off. He didn't say the exact date it was, but I'm presuming late 90s, because that was the time where there was a lot of door wars and everything else going on. And in 2000, I think early 2000s, that club actually shut. It was going from the 60s, 70s. But in 2006, the door scene sort of changed a little bit in Liverpool. It was less naughty, if you like, than it was in the 90s. I remember going drinking in Liverpool in the sort of late 90s. And yeah, there was some serious boys on the doors. You know, you didn't want to be getting into rows with them unless you was proper teamed up or firm-handed, because I've seen many a doorman throw someone out drunk, or a few lads try it on and just get smashed to pieces, getting their heads stamped, kicked all over the shop, as was the case back then in Liverpool. I think the big security firm was Premier back then. That was the firm that was involved in I think one of the clubs was the Paradox Club that they had. That was the firm that was involved in the war, I believe, the Clark brothers, the Wolf Pack. And there's all sorts of stuff going off in all different parts of Liverpool. Different areas would be run by different firms, and then there'd be individual hardman doormen and who ran door firms, and like Gary Spires in the 80s. I think Gary Spires, was he operating in the 90s? I'm not sure. Maybe it was more Blackpool way and whatnot then. Not sure when Terry O'Neill gave up working the doors, or who. You know, I know Gary Spires had a big security firm, lots of blokes to back him up, like your Gary Sandlins, your Alfie Lewis's, from that sort of karate, martial arts background. But very dangerous and interesting time. There's a few good books out. There's the Joe Owens book, which I've done some readings from. It gives quite a detailed view on everything that was going on then. And there's a couple of other ones as well. Working with Warriors is fantastic. That's got a lot of stuff in about Gary Spires and Terry O'Neill, and a few others as well, which have slipped my mind. But I'll try and leave some links in for anyone interested in delving in to that sort of period. I should be doing more videos on it as well, but I thought that was an interesting one. And it was brutal. You know, there's no prisoners being had there. You know, I think 2 of the people there nearly died. They managed to make it through. One nearly lost his eye. So it was a dangerous situation. But there's many of them over the years in Liverpool and across the country. People getting killed, stabbed to death, whatever. Wasn't the 80s, and the mid to late 80s and the 90s was the most dangerous periods for me, in regards to door work and that type of underworld stuff. Because when the drugs, like obviously the pills and the white came in, it ups the ante. Because whoever controls the doors, as we all know, they control the access. So obviously that's a key thing for the different security gangs. That's their business. You know, money's king. They aren't bothered about professional fighters and whatnot. If they can't do you with their hands, they'll just do you with weapons. And that's just how it was. But yeah, enjoyed that. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. I really appreciate all the support from my subs. We're growing nice and steady. I think we've surpassed 23,000 now. So onwards and upwards. I do an array. If it's the first time watching the video, we're doing an array of different things, from gangland, true crime documentaries. I sometimes narrate some chapters and extracts out of books, but it's all around the true crime, gangland genre, hardmen, boxers, martial artists. So I do a mix. I do touch a little bit on some of the football stuff as well. If there's anything you want me to cover, or you think I haven't covered already, pop it into the comments. I always like reading the comments. And I've got loads of catalogues on my playlists, so get to the playlist and you'll see they're all Lenny McLean stories, or London Gangland, or Liverpool Gangland, and there's plenty to choose from. Okay, that's it. That's me out till next time. Take care.